YouTube? Austin Vintage Warfare here today to break down the different types of military surplus collectors and the good and bad within all of them. And yeah, I sound kind of sick right now. It's because I've been sick for the last 2 weeks and I've brought all my energy together to discuss things that I dislike because I'm toxic, I guess. But before we get into today's video, there is no sponsor. Don't worry, no sponsor. However, if you're not already, follow me on Instagram. It's kind of funny. Recently had a bullying campaign. Shout out to Blue Line Solutions to get them to reproduce an STG 44 in 7.62 by 39. And they've been good sports about it, so I just wanted to give them a shout out. Also, like the video if you do and dislike it if you don't. Really helps me out in the beast we call an algorithm. Please and thank you. So, the different types of military surplus collectors, I've narrowed it down to 3 different types. And there's, I guess, subsets in a couple of them, but I'm going to give you the general basics in a meme format because my primitive monkey brain cannot process any information unless it's in a meme template. But the first one is just the generic military surplus collector, and there's one of 2. There's one that really likes collecting military surplus, and then there's one that saw it in a Battlefield, Call of Duty, or movie title, and they're like, you know what, I want one of those. It's pretty standard to want, you know, maybe a collector's like, oh, I really always wanted a Luger, and then he'll go buy a Carcano because why not? It's just another military surplus gun. Some people will literally just have one in their collection because they're like, oh, I always wanted one. That's pretty baseline normal military surplus collector. Reenactors are not included in that, but they technically count. And then with the first meme template, we're going to do the boomer. Now, for the boomers watching, because I know my own parents get kind of offended when I bring up that word. It's like it has a negative connotation. The boomer is in this bell curve meme is like, wow, you know, I used to get these at $50 a rifle. Feel sorry for you, son. Anyways, that'll be 4K. And, you know, you have the simple man who's like, dude, I'll just get an AR. Like, why am I even bothering with this old wood and steel rifle? Carcon is probably not the best example, but SVT in there. And then you have the person who really understands the implications of that sort of thought process. And this carries me to my first point about this type of collector. Typically they have them when they bought them very cheap, and then they turn and flip them for, you know, ridiculous prices. And I've talked about on this channel a lot. I'm beating a dead horse because, well, you know, I like beating dead horses and prices annoy me. But, you know, if you look at it like an SVT as an example, only recently have they started to be listed at $4,000, and it's very arbitrary. There's really no reason for it to be listed at $4,000. And a lot of the people selling these, by the way, are older people that are trying to make a quick buck. Now, the real ramification of it is you have a younger generation of people who are actually interested and invested in the history and the meaning behind these firearms. And they're being priced out. Like a lot of things in the world right now, they're being priced out because a lot of, you know, and don't get me wrong, a lot of the obscure forums on military surplus weapons and the research behind them were also done by older people. But of the vast majority of them that I've known have been very greedy with, and by the way, this isn't a I should get everything for free mentality. But when you're asking for $4,000 on a rifle that was maybe not even worth $2,000 years ago, and it's not even really worth that, at what point does it just get ridiculous? And it's just greed. Because the vast majority of older people that I've talked to about these firearms didn't care at all about them. Carcanos were junk to them. Arisakas, Soviet garbage. Like, they didn't care about this stuff. It was just everywhere and they took it for granted. They didn't care about it. And now that they know, they're like, oh my God, it's selling for thousands of dollars. Well, hell, you know, but they're basically killing the ability for the newer generations to get into this kind of collecting. And that's really sad. And that's actually the worst ramification of this sort of collector. In selling your SVT 40 to cover your divorce lawyer fees is probably not going to work for you, Dale. Just saying. So now for the third type of collector. Now there's two types of these ones. One's understandable, one kind of just annoys me. Bell curve meme time. So you have this person who's like, well, I need to own 6 Lugers for no reason. And this, you know, far be it for me to tell you to not have the biggest collection of firearms that you could possibly get your hands on. I support that. However, most of these people are buying these up to flip them or whatever, and a lot of them end up just collecting dust in their safe, and it annoys me. And they do this with all the ones that everyone wants. Like, and the only thing I can always think of is like, where are you getting this money? How do you have 6 Gewehr 43s? I don't understand. But of course, there's another type of this collector, right? And it's pretty understandable. Actually, one guy that I could reference, he's on Instagram. He's the Mosin guy, but he collects all the different variations and rare types of Mosin Nagants, which is understandable. If you're somebody who's like, I just want to own each specific, you know, type, that's awesome. I think that's cool. He does little posts and stuff about it every other day, and that's interesting. And I think that's cool, more understandable anyway. I think that if you're somebody who at least knows what they're looking for, that's the difference. It's the people who just blindly buy, I'm going to buy 10 M1 Garands and sit on them and wait for the arbitrary value to go up even more because of the boomer collector, and I'm just going to basically perpetuate that same cycle of arbitrary value to a military surplus rifle, and the prices will only get worse because we're just saying, like, I don't know why I don't just post this up and be like, you know what, this Carcano is now worth 10 grand. Why not? Why not? You know, if I can just assign something $2,000 worth of value more for no reason and it sells, then why, you know, I understand. You know, by the way, I was somebody who said military surplus is a good investment. Sounds hypocritical, but it is. But it's because of this, and it doesn't mean that I like that that's the case. Sort of reminds me, if any of you are familiar with the retro gaming appraisal situation, where basically companies were just assigning like some copy of Super Mario Brothers from, like, you know, whenever that came out. I'm not a retro gaming nerd, but, you know, they were making these things worth millions of dollars for no reason. And it like, I see how military surplus is sort of following that scam as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, it's only getting worse, and it's because all of these types of collectors work in tandem to make the market worse. And it's not really anyone's fault. It's just people kind of playing the game. But at the same time, there's like a military surplus bubble at some point. I feel like it's gonna pop. But I could be wrong. You know, maybe we're just screwed forever until something cool happens with importation laws and stuff like that, which will probably never happen. But that's gonna do it for me today, guys. It's Austin Vintage Warfare. 200,000 subs. Fuck. Hell yeah, you love to see it. I really appreciate every single one of you, especially the ones that have your notifications on, all that stuff, and you're in the comments talking with me and stuff. I really appreciate the feedback and the engagement. So I will see you in the next video, hopefully at the range. Later.